Hey everybody, it's MJ from Ultra Love. How are you? So today I felt guided to do a collective intuitions for the month of December, and I've titled it Freedom, Responsibility, and Healing. So, this whole year ultimately has been a monumental shape-shifting of our daily routines, and also ultimately for a lot of this collective stepping into your truth, stepping into your power, and effectively still continuing with the same things of freedom, responsibility, and healing. So, recognizing that the healing is ongoing and that our freedom and healing is intertwined ultimately, and that the healing that we're undertaking from within self is collectively shapeshifting the world that we know. So, a huge thing that's coming through in these last few days even is this deeper trust. So, with regard to the patterns that we're in and the intentions that we're setting and ultimately the life that we're pioneering and have been intending for some time now, to drop into this sort of deeper trust with regards to the healing and the observation of patterns, the relinquishing of certain bass tones as well. And so it's all one and the same in essence. The deeper healing and the deeper trust ultimately shapeshifts the projections. It shapeshifts how we're going about doing our day-to-day life, because we're in this deeper trust with regard to our life path and our purpose. So our own personal shapeshifting is the shapeshifting of the world, and as we dissolve the false constructs within self, that's ultimately the same as the world's structures being collapsed or being dissolved, because the more of the collective is focusing on focusing on the new way of being the new manifestations, and this continual unfolding. And it's, again, I talk about it in the Unplug for Freedom course. I'm editing that right now, so it's on my mind. This feeling of it never ending, and recognizing that this new reality that we're making manifest is a continual unfolding and a quantum leap in our human evolution as a species. So, responsibility to self has a lot to do with disentangling codependent relationships and or structures. So, part of this mass healing is sort of one by one exiting the false, and the false it's not black and white necessarily like that. It's to do with disempowered aspects of self. So the responsibility to self is, one, of course, getting to know the feelings, and then in that, endeavoring total responsibility to integrate those lost aspects. So the situations in our life that make us angry, the situations in our life that provoke a sense of resentment or jealousy, things that I've talked about here all along, those are all aspects of self that we integrate. And the key here is the responsibility to self with a capital S. It's to thine own self be true. That is inherently the gateway to you being able to disentangle the codependencies, the bass tone patterns that come out of fear, desperation, and, well, yeah, that's it, ultimately. Fear, desperation, fear. So that separation wounding that triggers a sense of powerlessness within us is the biofeedback of aspects of self that we're having to integrate. So we have 4 foundations. 4 is the 2020 astrology. 4 is a very solid foundation. And so even though it might not be totally apparent yet, this last year has been really laying down these foundations of a new reality. And these foundations, now that they're set, it's like the energy is the building of the new. And again, that has to do with our perception as a species, our perception as a whole. And it's not to say that, everybody is coming into perfect agreement or alignment, but there's definitely an overarching theme of this self-responsibility, and then another theme of divine law. So the divine law is now permeating the collective consciousness, and that cosmic energy or cosmic awareness is also one and the same as people making different choices and aligning themselves with different ideals for our common humanity. And again, that's the shift. So more people focusing on those positives, or focusing on those aspects of freedom that we all have access to. Ultimately, that is one and the same as dissolving the old structures, simply because we're focusing on these new structures. We're focusing on living our lives in a different way, living our lives from a different point of attraction. Again, that's self-responsibility, healing, forgiveness, and trust. And freedom again is one and the same as being a conscious chooser. When we can reclaim our mind space or our mental space, and reclaim unapologetically our emotional space, that is the path pioneering to freedom. And the more of us endeavoring that freedom path become the examples for other. So this focusing on the new structures is naturally, it's one and the same as dissolving the old. So we're just focusing more on freedom, focusing more on self-responsibility, focusing more on disentangling the codependencies that we're in. And the feelings is a big piece as well. I just wrote in parentheses that feelings, they reign supreme. So part of this new awareness is also the priority, or the awareness of our feelings is one and the same as dissolving the veil of materiality. So this endless loop of consumerist lifestyle, this endless loop of chasing materiality as a goal of our achievement or our sense of belongingness. So that is also a big part of what's dissolving in the human consciousness field, is the attachment to achievement of material resources. We can see potentially the disparity in that, and the lack, actually, of hoarding, of acquiring more. That there's a great shift in this collective awakening that then prioritizes greater harmony and also simplicity. So, and that is also a big part of shape-shifting the economy, and sort of boycotting, or in a sense, energetically speaking, starving off corporate greed as a construct. Is this endless chasing of materiality becomes like old news sort of thing. Like, people just aren't interested in that anymore. So the collective awakening, and then it's like there's going to be aspects of people going back to natural ways, wanting to grow. And that's already happening. It's just going to be happening more and more and more. People growing their own food, and people creating their own businesses based on their own purpose and desire. And then the note here, which I said at the beginning, was like this deeper trust. It's coming from within us, from these final months of like review and the residue, and the looking at our patterns and looking at our disempowered aspects, and choosing to trust more deeply in the process. We have these many different processes which we're engaged with, and the processes are just part of how we've come to operate, and so we use them as long as they're necessary. And I've spoken of this even with the Fearless Life Guide. There's always an opportunity for us, in essence, to let go of a process, and to let go of anything that creates more resistance, anything that creates like a feeling of not enoughness. So sometimes it warrants us stepping away, or even just letting go of a process to live in trust. Basically, it's like the sense of a deep, deep trust is the knowing that it's all sorted out, is the knowing that like it's all done basically. So that deeper trust allows us to move through our reality with greater ease, greater benevolence, and it's like this idea that the universe knows you better than you know yourself. And I feel like I've probably said that in a couple shares mounting to this. And ultimately, when it comes to you creating this new world, it really does come down to consistency, persistence, and discipline. But remembering that these words were now redefining the meaning from a more holistic, loving, and nurturing place. So, really, and I know I can testify to this, that it's our ability energetically and or vibrationally to come into alignment with our soul. So, to discipline ourselves to love, to discipline ourselves to greater self-care, nurturing, allowing, acceptance, these positive qualities, that discipline in a new order, from a new perspective, that's ultimately, again, this greater idea of the paradigm shift. More and more and more humans out of suffering or whatever choose love. So they kind of exhaust all the different old paradigm ways of fixing or making those changes, and then endeavor a deeper discipline of, it's not deeper, not deeper, it's just what it is. It's creating patterns and structures based in this loving connection. So the discipline, the persistence, the consistency ultimately comes from you standing and aligning with your truth, being in your power, and committing to the discipline of love, which allows us, again, to heal relationships, heal ourselves ultimately, so that we can continue to walk in freedom. And again, it's how we're setting the tone for our own personal lives that then continues to have those ripple effects in the collective, the people around us, the communities that we vibe with, and all that kind of stuff. So that's your December 2019 collective intuitions. Let me know what you guys feel or think about that. I know that we're in these really shape-shifty times. I find it really useful to remember that it's just you that you're responsible for. And it's ultimately that presence awareness and the unity within your own heart space and your ability to be present with that heart space, So for a lot of people, a big laying down of certain chakras will be remembering it's only you that you're responsible for. In any given moment, your joy, your freedom, you're choosing, right? You're choosing what feels better for you or what feels best for you is your freedom piece. And then doing it, that's a big part of, even, again, my mind is on it because I'm editing Unplug for Freedom, but even by week 7, I've just finished editing week 7, and by week 7, it's like you're going to be feeling the benefits if you're doing it. I've spoken of this on this channel before, but it's one thing to sit around and talk about meditation or talk about conscious movement or talk about whatever kind of spiritual concepts or loving concepts, but we have to actually implement them into our lives. We have to shapeshift the mental arena, and that ultimately, from a lot of us sharing in this way, this is something that can be years in the making. This is something that we might work on for years and years before we see truly a shape-shifted reality. And yet that's the important part of the trust, is that we're taking these leaps and we're pioneering aspects of ourself from the void into the reality, which is quite a bold leap to be taking, especially from the old constructs, and the old indoctrination systems. And yet it's sort of like, that's the soul's growth. That's the point of having the deep trust, is that it is your soul's choosing, and that's the part of taking responsibility and not judging one another and not victimizing one another and or holding people on these other pedestals depending on how their life looks. Not judging books by covers is incredibly useful, again, spiritual teaching. it really doesn't matter what people's worlds are looking like in the here and now. That's part of that's just where they're at, and it doesn't necessarily hold. And we will see that. We'll see in the collective in the months ahead, certain structures totally falling, certain big corporations maybe going bankrupt or what have you, because the collective sway is now becoming more responsible about how we're using our money and where we're investing our energy ultimately, right? So the more people become aware of the falsity of some of our world's power players, you could say, the less hold they have over the collective. And then that is also what, in my awareness, makes this shift, the ability of the shift to be very harmonious, is that there's a lot of you could say, like, there's a lot of work that has happened in the ethereal. So even though it's felt for a lot of us kind of slow moving, that is part of the overarching construct of learning and mastery around manifestation. And that slow moving process has really been about our perspective slowing down to really look at things from all the different angles, so that we can lead better, so that we can teach better, so that we can have more fun ultimately as well. And so because so much of this work has already happened in the quantum field, the way it permeates into the larger collective does and will happen faster than perhaps what our own perception has been around our own transformation. So it all happens sort of in slow mo to then build up momentum and build up speed, so that greater pockets of the collective, almost, it's like a deeper understanding just like that, because more and more people are adventuring it, are endeavoring it, and we can see that more and more and more, which is ushering more and more people to take those leaps into their freedom path and path of purpose and joy. So that's the December reading. As I mentioned in this share, I've been working pretty diligently for the last year and a half ultimately on these Be the Change online courses. We're still playing around with the structure of delivery, and I'll be essentially launching all four as a big thing for all to love, certainly by around the holidays, so like mid-December, heading toward Christmas. And they're really helpful, I would say, for people who want to break free from the mainstream media. That's the Unplug for Freedom. I've recently come off Instagram and Facebook, and probably because I was editing the weeks talking about social media and devices, and making sure to essentially practice what I preach, and realizing that there was this undercurrent energy of fear driving a lot of the social media posting. And so that's part of why I've decided to come away from it and do the work. So come into this sense of deeper trust and knowingness about our path and our own personal vision, and the intuitive integrity of that purpose, and the love that we have to share. And thus, even the fact of like letting go of certain things to open ourselves up to receive more of what it is that we've been asking for, and then not trying to micromanage it. Feel free to check out the online courses. The Zero Waste with Katie Finch helps you to basically scale back completely and be pretty close to zero waste in all the different rooms in your house, and for traveling and holiday mode. And then Spirituality Simplified is really an encapsulation of my own awareness on this spiritual awakening journey. And I filmed it in Bali in Indonesia mostly, and have really cool interviews with some freedom rebels and New Earth pioneers. And then Alta Vegan Love features a lot of different vegan businesses and looks at the vegan movement. And Unplug for Freedom is talking about Unplug. So all the courses are 8 weeks in length. You can buy them week by week or one whole lot, or you can buy all four. And essentially, like, this is the heart of All to Love, and the pillars, even as far as like 4 pillars of a foundation for a business go, is that in my awareness, having been on this journey for a while, and essentially the 4 courses are really based on my own, like, how I live my life, and have a unique perspective, and have a clarity from within self, and I'm able to practice all this love, is that, you know, I don't eat certain foods, and I practice living minimally, and not being slow fashion, as it were. So like only buying used items and charity shop items, and reusing and recycling and whatnot. So, and then obviously the spirituality piece, which to me is about connection, and having that primary connection with your intuition, with your soul, with your source, with whatever higher self, you know. And then the unplug, I'm really enjoying, even myself, like I'm enjoying doing the edit, because it's just feedbacking to me, you know, the importance. And I know for a lot of you on this channel, you're like fully awakened and vibing high, but if it's something that you feel could be useful to any family or friends now or in the future, it would be really helpful for me, for all y'all guys, to share the All to Love platform. And from All to Love's perspective, how can people be effective channels of change? Well, they can practice the tenets of these 4 courses, these Be the Change courses, which I have, you guys know this, like a really lighthearted approach. It's not about making people feel bad for eating meat and dairy, or making people feel bad for watching the news. But, you know, having been intuitively guided in service to the whole, it's like, well, these are the things that can really effectively, practically shapeshift our world and lead us into greater authenticity, harmony, and freedom. So feel free to check those out. It's always really like benevolent for me when you guys make purchases, and there's merchandise to share the love brand. And because I'm off Facebook and Instagram, if any of all y'all are here and you're still watching, just sharing videos, like if some of these videos really resonate with you and you want to share them on Facebook or share them on Instagram, feel free to hashtag All to Love. And eventually we'll probably get back on the media to just promote different products. But I did do a post about fakery on social media. So this is why the deeper trust insight has come through, is like, you know, let go even more, and come into that deep trust and knowing of self even more. And trust and expect basically all these intuitive insights to make manifest in their own divine timing, because the foundations have been laid. You know, feelings are important, connections are important, being clear, living more minimally, but not from lack. So that's a discernment piece as well. You know, making these changes from a place of power and integrity and abundance as well. Because my world, even on a consumerist level, feels much more abundant being vegan, and being, I'm not zero waste, but having an awareness of that, certainly in as many areas as I can manage. And that's why we call it Zenful Zero Waste, because we don't want people to like have emotional breakdowns and freakouts. But when we can live in alignment with our soul's expansion and awareness, then that just feels better. And in a really simple way, that's really all these courses are about, is like how to practically make ourselves feel better. One, we can align ourselves with a positive movement and practice it, which I know a lot of you guys do. And 2, we can spend money on people and companies that we believe in, versus mindlessly consuming and spending money on companies that maybe aren't as aligned with the integrity and the heart of humanity. So thank you guys so much. Head over to All to Love and subscribe, and book sessions, book intuitive readings, and do all that juicy good stuff. If you want to have some coaching, feel free to book a coaching session, maybe just a perspective call to get a sense of the connection and whether or not regular coaching would serve you. I'm very open to sort of negotiating price points with people if they feel that regular coaching is definitely for them. So bear that in mind when you see the prices that's available. Otherwise, I would recommend the book for your own emotional healing and transformation, and to have a greater awareness of what your emotions really are, and like how you can heal via the emotional awareness and guidance system. And then beyond the book, I'd recommend the online courses. And then once you're in it, really in the change, the day-to-day changes you want to make, or you're feeling like a bit of support, then you can reach out for coaching sessions, or even just the intuitive readings, which offer people some divine guidance and loving clarity, especially when we're in the shits. When we're in the profundity of these cosmic changes, which can blow our 3D mind out the water and leave us feeling a little bit hopeless. And it's ultimately from a very pure place in my own heart, to be a beacon of hope and positive vision for our common humanity here. So, that's the purity of Alta Love as a movement, to reach people organically, just via the positivity of the work, the hope that it brings, and also the practical aspect of the Be the Change courses, which I'm proud of, which I feel, again, it's sort of miraculous, because it was never at all in my awareness when I even made certain changes. I didn't know I was publishing a book, and then I published a book, and then published the book and fuffed about with different things, and then eventually I'm creating these courses. And even with regards to these intuitive shares, I can feel the alignment with Alta Love as far as having laid down the foundation. And now the foundation's set, the brand is set, it is what it is, and it's firm. The foundation is firm, it knows itself, so it can grow and prosper, and expand the vision across the field, basically. So thank you guys so much for being here. It means absolutely everything to me, and I really respect this community a great deal. And I really do welcome your guys' insights, and being able to work with such a powerful and beautiful community. Thank you guys. Have a great day and have a wonderful December. I'll see you soon. Peace.